My name is Aisha. I was born in a place called Saudi Arabia where almost everyone believes in a religion called Islam. When I was really little, the first word I learned after Mama was Allah. That's what we called God. My dad was super strict about our religion. He loved God so much, but he was also really scary sometimes. In our house, you couldn't ask questions about anything. You just had to do what you were told. If you questioned why we prayed 5 times a day, or why women had to cover themselves, or why we couldn't be friends with Christians, you would get in big trouble. My dad would say, "Questions are from Satan. Just obey." By the time I was 9 years old, I had memorized huge parts of our holy book called the Quran. Every morning before school, I would recite verses in Arabic. I didn't always understand what they meant, but I knew them perfectly. I wore a head covering called a hijab every day, and I was proud of it. All the other girls at my Islamic school wore them too. We were taught that this made us pure and protected us from evil. I believed in Islam, not because I really understood it, but because it was all I knew. It was like the air I breathed. Everyone around me, my parents, my siblings, my teachers, my neighbors, they all believed the same thing. There was no other option. But deep down inside, something felt empty, like there was a hole in my heart that nothing could fill. At night, I would lie in bed and wonder, is this really all there is? Is God just a bunch of rules? I would watch my father pray, and sometimes he looked angry while he prayed, like he was afraid of God. I wondered if God actually loved us or if he was just waiting for us to mess up so he could punish us. These thoughts scared me because I knew I wasn't supposed to think them. One night, during a special month called Ramadan, when we don't eat during the day, I had the most real dream of my life. I mean, it felt more real than being awake. I was standing in a desert, but it wasn't scary. It wasn't the hot, burning desert I knew from our country. This desert was glowing with this beautiful warm light, like the sun was setting but the light was coming from everywhere at once. The sand beneath my feet felt soft and cool. And then I saw him. A man in a white robe was walking toward me. His face was so bright and kind, but also powerful. Not scary powerful like my father when he was angry, but strong powerful, like he could protect me from anything. When he looked at me, I felt like he could see right into my heart, but instead of being ashamed, I felt safe. I was scared, but also drawn to him at the same time, like when you're afraid of the ocean but you want to touch the water anyway. He said my name, Aisha. But the way he said it was different from how anyone had ever said it before. It sounded like he had been waiting his whole life to say my name. Then he said something that made my heart stop. "I am the way, the truth, and the life." I had heard those words before. There was a Christian girl at my school named Miriam who whispered them to me once before she got kicked out of school. She was from Lebanon, and her family had moved to Saudi Arabia for work. One day, when we were alone in the bathroom, she had grabbed my hand and whispered those exact words, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." I remember being so scared that someone might hear her. 2 weeks later, she was gone. Her family had to leave the country. But then the man in my dream said something that made me fall to the ground crying, "I died for you." The words hit me like lightning. In Islam, we believed that God would never die, that God was too powerful and too important to die. But here was this man, and somehow I knew he was God, telling me he died for me. Not for everyone in general, but for me specifically. For Aisha. He came over and put his hand on my shoulder and I felt this amazing warmth go through my whole body. It was like drinking hot tea on a cold day, except the warmth filled every part of me, my arms, my legs, even my fingers and toes. For the first time in my life, I felt completely loved. Not loved because I was good at memorizing the Quran, or because I wore my hijab properly, or because I obeyed my father. Just loved because I was me. I woke up screaming. 4 days after that dream, I couldn't get it out of my head. The name Jesus kept burning in my chest like a fire. I had never felt anything like this before. Not even when I prayed really hard or fasted. I was so curious that I did something really dangerous. I used our computer late at night and found a way to read about Jesus online. I read stories about how he loved people, how he died for them, how he forgave them. And you know what? Reading about Jesus made me feel something I had never felt before. I felt peaceful, happy, like someone actually loved me just for being me. One night, I whispered the words that changed my whole life. Jesus, I believe in you. I believe you are God's son. The moment I said it, I felt like I was born again, like I was a completely new person. But that feeling only lasted 2 days. My older brother, Hassan, found out what I had been reading on the computer. I forgot to delete it. Big mistake. He didn't yell or scream. He just walked into my room and slapped me so hard I saw stars. Then he told my dad. That night, my dad dragged me into the living room. He looked at me with eyes full of anger and shame. He didn't even ask if it was true. He just shouted, "You are not my daughter anymore." Then he started hitting me. For 2 whole weeks, they locked me in my room. They only gave me food once a day. And when they looked at me, it was like I was some kind of disease. My mom, who used to hug me and sing to me, wouldn't even look at me. My sisters weren't allowed to talk to me. I felt like I was already dead. At night, I could hear my dad outside my door praying, "God, please fix her. Get the demons out of her. Kill this sickness inside her." I hid a little piece of paper with Jesus' name written on it. That was all I had. On the 10th day, they brought in a religious man to try to get the demons out of me. He poured cold water on me, yelled prayers in my ears, and hit my legs with a stick when I couldn't say the prayers fast enough. I wanted to scream, but I stayed quiet. I remember Jesus said, "If they hurt me, they will hurt you too." The religious man told my dad, maybe if she gets married, she'll be fixed. The next week, they wanted me to marry a man who was 20 years older than me and already had 2 wives. When I said no, they beat me again. That night, I prayed harder than I ever had. "Jesus, if you're real, please help me escape." And he did, but not the way I expected. My cousin Zara was different from everyone else in my family. She was kind and gentle. When she came to visit and saw me all beat up and skinny, she started crying. She hugged me tight and whispered, "I know what you believe." I was so scared, but then she said, "You saw him too, didn't you?" I started crying. She nodded and said, "I saw Jesus too, 2 years ago." Can you believe it? My cousin was secretly a Christian, too. She had been pretending to be Muslim because she was scared, just like me. She gave me a little device that looked like a USB stick, but it had the whole Bible in Arabic on it. That night, I read Jesus' words, "You are blessed when people hurt you and say mean things about you because you follow me." Those words gave me hope. But the next day, my dad found the device. My dad was so angry when he found that device. He woke me up by throwing cold water on my face and screaming, "Who gave this to you? Are you meeting with Christians? Are you trying to poison our house?" When I didn't answer, he grabbed my hair and dragged me out of bed. My head hit the wall and I started bleeding. He told my brothers, "Take her to the basement. She stays there until the demons leave." My own brothers, my own family tied my hands and dragged me down to the basement like I was an animal. There was no bed, no windows, no light, just a bucket in the corner and concrete walls. For 10 days, I lived in that dark basement. I prayed in the dark. I whispered Jesus' name over and over. By the 5th day, I was so weak, I could barely pray anymore. I just curled up in a ball and thought I was going to die. That night, I had another dream. Jesus was there with me again, but this time he was crying. He didn't say anything. He just knelt down next to me and held me. When I woke up, I felt like he was really there with me. The pain was real, but so was his love. On the 10th day, Zara came back. She paid the housekeeper to unlock the basement door while my family was out. When she saw me, she gasped. I was so skinny and hurt. She wrapped me in a blanket and we ran out the back door. We ran to a house outside the city where a Christian couple lived. They were from Armenia and they secretly helped people like me. These people took me in like I was their own daughter. They cried when they saw my wounds. They fed me and washed me and prayed for me. For the first time in my life, I felt love without any conditions. But we couldn't stay long. My dad had told the police I was missing. He said I was crazy and that bad Christians had brainwashed me. The police were looking for me and if they caught the Christian couple, they would go to prison or worse. So, I had to keep moving from house to house. Sometimes I stayed with strangers. Sometimes I slept on the floor in old churches. I was always scared it would be my last night. One day, a man named Omar came to visit me. He used to be Muslim too, but he became a Christian. His own father had tried to poison him because of it. He looked at me with kind eyes and said, "Aisha, you're not alone. Your story will help other people. Don't be ashamed of your wounds. They prove your faith is real." That night, I decided to get baptized. It wasn't fancy or anything, just me, a small candle, a bucket of water, and Jesus. As I went under the water, I whispered, "I'm yours, Jesus, no matter what it costs." When I came up, I felt more peaceful than I ever had in my whole life. But 2 days later, someone told on me. The police came knocking on the door. The Christian couple hid me under the floorboards, and I lay there trying not to breathe while they talked to the police. The police left, but they warned, "If we find out you're hiding converts, you'll be in big trouble." I knew I had to leave the country. Getting out of Saudi Arabia when you're a Christian with no passport is almost impossible. I was like a ghost. I didn't officially exist anymore. Zara helped me one last time. She found Christians who helped smuggle people out of the country. But I couldn't take a plane. I had to walk through the desert at night. They gave me old clothes, a scarf to cover my face, and a tiny bag with water, bread, and a small Bible. I still have that Bible. It's torn and faded, but it's my most precious thing. We walked for hours in the dark with just the stars above us. Every step felt like we might get caught and die. I kept praying, "Jesus, carry me." At one point, we heard voices and had to hide under some rocks for over an hour. I was shaking so bad, I bit my lip and tasted blood. Finally, we made it to another country. I was taken to a small place where secret Christians lived. For the first time, I could say Jesus' name out loud. I could worship without whispering. I cried during every song, not because I was happy, but because I had lost everything and Jesus was still enough. Life didn't get easy just because I escaped. I had no papers, no records, no money. No country wanted me. People called me a traitor. I applied to go to a country in the West where I could be safe. It took 1.5 years. During that time, I lived in a room smaller than a prison cell. I had nightmares almost every night. Dreams about being dragged back home. About my dad screaming, "Kill her! She's dead to US." There was one night I almost killed myself. I found a piece of broken mirror and held it to my wrist. I looked at myself and whispered, "You're already dead." But right then, I heard a song playing from another room. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. It broke my heart and saved me at the same time. I dropped the mirror and fell on the floor crying. That night, I felt Jesus holding me again. He said, "You are mine. I haven't forgotten you." After those long, hard months, they said I could come to America. I got on a plane for the first time in my life. As we flew away from the Middle East, I looked out the window and whispered, "Jesus, we made it." When I got to my new country, I had nothing but the clothes I was wearing and my Bible. But I was finally free. Free to talk about Jesus. Free to read the Bible. Free to pray out loud. Free to laugh and cry without being scared. Free to live. But freedom is also lonely. I miss my sisters and my mom. I even miss my dad sometimes. They still think I'm dead. And maybe to them I am. One of my cousins told Zara, "If Aisha ever comes back, we'll bury her alive." That's what it costs to follow Jesus where I come from. You don't just lose your religion, you lose your family, your culture, your home, your name. But Jesus gave me a new name. He calls me his daughter. He calls me beloved. Today, I work at a small church where we speak Arabic. I tell my story not to get attention, but to tell the truth. There are other people like me hiding, scared, dreaming about Jesus, waking up afraid. If you're one of those people, I want to tell you, hold on. Don't give up. Jesus is worth it. If you live in America or another free country, please don't forget about us. Don't ignore the Christians who suffer every day just for saying Jesus' name. For you, faith might be comfortable. For us, it's about surviving. If you're reading this and you've never thought about what it would cost to follow Jesus, ask yourself, would you still believe if it cost you everything? For me, It did cost me everything. And I still say Jesus is Lord. Jesus is worth it. Jesus is my life. Even though I have wounds that will never heal until I get to heaven, I have hope because one day I'm going to see Jesus again. Not in a dream, but face to face. And he's going to wipe away every tear I cried in that basement, in the desert, in the dark. Until that day, I won't be quiet. I won't be scared. I will live as someone who was lost but now is found.